Today is Tuesday, June 4th. I was just sitting out here doing what I'm doing with my garden and thinking that I'll make a video about this. So in here I have just a set of thin markers and pens that I keep with all my gardening stuff that are just a variety of colors, and tape. So what I do is I take a piece of graph paper and I map out my garden. It seems like a lot of work, but for a few minutes, it's actually, for a few minutes of time to make this, it is super helpful throughout the year. So sometimes, in some years, I'll make 2 sets of these, and then I keep them, and I have last year's garden plan. I used to always do it on graph paper, and I'm going to start definitely doing it again. I pick up graph paper for cheap from like the Goodwill. If I ever see graph paper with this size of squares, like the bigger the square, in my opinion, the better. So if I ever see any kind of graph paper, I buy it at the Goodwill. So we built the 2 beds over here, and those are both 12 by 5. And you see that there's trellises in there, and then the white piece, the white that you see is a screen that goes over the zucchini while they're young to protect them from the vine borers and the squash bugs. So I'll basically leave those in there until they're too big, and once they start hitting the dome, then I'll take the dome off. We have some old screens that we had gotten from somewhere, like just a bunch of old house screens, and Terry and I are going to build boxes out of them to put over the squash, because they have to grow a long time before they actually start producing fruit. So the more that you can keep them covered before they flower, in my opinion, the better. So back to what I originally started with, which is I take each piece of paper and do a garden bed on it. So this had, was it this one? This one had 12, so I just wrote 1 through 12, or I wrote it 3 times, so I was able to write it 3 times, so I know that that's 3 squares for 1 foot. And then this really helps with square foot gardening too, if you're going to follow that method, because then you're mapping everything out and saying when it is. So I have the trellis, which I can't really plant anything right underneath the trellis, so I just block off some squares like in the whole foot, and I planted Armenian cucumbers here. If I'm thinking about it when I do it and keep this out all the time, then I write the date that I am planting as well. I missed quite a few of them this year because I was just trying to get it done before the rain and didn't maybe have time because I had to go to work and didn't have time to write the date. But I have 2 vacant trellises that I'm going to work on, and then I just mark it, north, east, south, and west. And sometimes I'll mark on here like when it starts getting shaded out or when it starts getting sun. If I think of something from one year to the next, I'll just write on here like next year I'm going to use 1 color per planting date. So as the year goes by, I'll just use a different marker, and there's a million different colors of markers. So this is in front of the solar, so I need to add, because I planted more stuff, I'm going to add it. But today I planted yellow squash, and there's dill in this bed, and then cucumbers, beets are all coming up, and the okra is all starting to come up. So I need to plan here and plan here. And so what I'll do is I'll be able to look at this and see what's already planted. And then I can make myself a list of what to plant in each one so that I'm companion planting and planting things that can be planted next to each other. So like tomorrow, so the first in front of the solar, I'm gonna plant corn still in here. I was gonna do it today, but I had to talk to Terry first to see if I could plant it in front of the solar panels, but we both feel like it'll be okay because the sun is so directly overhead of the solar panels that during the summer that it shouldn't affect the corn, you know, shouldn't affect the solar panels. So then I just kind of keep a list. So tomorrow within this bed, I'm going to plant corn, radish. I'm really bad with pronunciations, but nasturtiums. I did the yellow squash today, and then psyllium flowers I'll plant in here as well, because my goal is for everything to be companion planted and shading the soil inside the raised bed so that it doesn't get direct sunlight all day and dry out. So then this is in front of the solar panel. This is on the side of the house. This is the strawberry, the 2 beds of a strawberry and asparagus. And I know that I'm going to plant rhubarb here. And then for the bed with the jalapeno peppers in it, I planted more okra inside there and a psyllium to attract the ladybugs and the hoverflies, all the different bugs to kill the aphids that will, you know, and the different bugs that'll get on the pepper plants. And then I planted radishes and yellow bush beans over here in these feet sections. And then I just make a notation of like what the bed size is. And then if I planted, I started writing in some of them that I planted with the date because that's helpful. And then as you harvest, you could also make notes on here, like in the side section, saying that you got 2-gallon Ziplocs of green beans on this date. And then you can kind of keep track of what you're planting and how much. So like the yellow beans, I probably should have tracked how many I planted, but I can always count the plants once they actually come up, which is what I've been doing with the other stuff. And then just writing, you know, cucumber times 6, because there's 6 cucumber plants here and 6 here. So I can kind of start keeping track of how much they're producing. And then I also, a lot of the times I'll write on here when I fertilize stuff. And then the container gardens, like the flower pots that I filled up for different things like flowers and potato. I have one that I started potatoes in. And then I'm going to start planting chamomile and different things and moving them into the shade and keeping track of that. So I know like how many I should plant, because I'm going to just keep adding flower pots full of things like chamomile, some for ginger, turmeric, and all the different things, and just add those throughout the yard in the sun or the shade. And then I'll just keep track of it with these kind of these kind of grids. It just makes it easier. Now that I went on about that for 10 minutes, that was just what I was going to talk about. It's very helpful.